This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Closing out a season of lesser-used circuits and layouts, our drivers get to wrap things up at one of the most popular tracks on the service. Watkins Glen is well known to both road and oval fans alike, but today, our road cars will be tackling the same layout that NASCAR uses. Expect high speeds and tense moments as we get ready to watch round 12 of the Weekend Warriors, and you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel and the iRacing Esports Network. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Stefan Schlacher. Behind the scenes is our director, the Dr. Amjad Yaman, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Steph, I know that the cup layout is simple, but I think it's deceptive. I found myself having a lot of fun driving here this week.
Most definitely, Joe. Never going below third gear, it is really on the simpler side to drive. With the only real challenge, the inner loop, with its bumpy curves and narrow racing line. If we're talking about racing on this track, then the draft factor comes into play. Majorly, because most of these A-turns only either require little or no braking to successfully see the other end of them. 2.45 miles of tarmac make up the cup layout, wide enough to allow 4 wide situations. If the drivers feel especially brave today, we might even be able to see them 3 wide going through the inner loop. One thing you're going to be seeing today for sure is our GSRC lap guide, to which we're gonna send you right now.
Alright, we're in the GSRC SRF, so let's do a lap around Watkins Glen. The 90 is make or break in a few ways. It's a great place to pass, but you'd probably do better to set yourself up for the exit of it. Try not to outbrake yourself or swing too wide into the paved runoff for that matter, because that can also cost you time. As we climb up the S's, it's easily flat out. You're basically straightening them out as much as possible and focusing on getting a nice clean shift. Here's where you'll start to see the importance of that exit speed in the 90. The lack of power in the Spec racer means the slipstream plays a big part of this track, so drivers who aren't fast up the hill will get gobbled up lap after lap. In fact, positioning your car in these draft battles will likely decide how you finish. Because you're not going incredibly fast, there isn't a whole lot of braking for the inner loop. You'll be balancing the car and getting aggressive on the curbs through this tricky chicane. And then, when you swing it into the carousel, there's really no use for the brakes at all. Just lift and carry your speed. The fastest drivers will be getting back on the throttle at the earliest moment possible. This is another long straightaway heading down to the penultimate turn, and your competitors might get another slingshot with the slipstream. Anyone who hesitates and finds themselves taking a little lift of their understeering is going to be very vulnerable. But at the same time, the entry into this left-hander is going to be very fast, so going in there too wide is both dangerous and costly in terms of lap time. Quickly, you'll swing back across the track and chuck it into the final corner. But there's no runoff to the outside of this bend, and hitting the tire barrier can be a race killer since any amount of damage will hurt your straight line speed. But from there, hopefully you've now finished a lap around Watkins Glen. You see a lap around the very short cup course here at Watkins Glen, but this Weekend Warriors is brought to you as every week by Sim Stickers. Whether it's button boxes, steering wheels, or keyboards, they have you covered. You can find out more about them at simstickers.co.uk. And once again, a gigantic thank you for sponsorship this season from the Sim Stickers folks. Now, this season has been wrapped up championship-wise, at least in the Spec 1, as we take a look at the point standings here. Sadro cannot reach Gaspers at this point, and Jerry McAreevy is well back in third. In fact, we might see a change between himself and Steve Elson, but it's highly unlikely. Michael Shaw is a lot more likely to be able to overtake Steve as far as changing in the top 5 that you see there. What about the Spec 2 championship? Doesn't seem quite as close, but close enough, I guess.
Yeah, it is a little bit closer, at least. Ian Haycock's first place from United Kingdom, 509 points to his name. Popcorn, 45 points behind, which isn't a figure you can't make up, but this is Spec 2, so it is. They are not going to be up there fighting for the big points. But you never know what happens, especially at a draft track like this one. It's Jeff Jacobson, 57 points behind Adam Bradshaw, already 40 points behind Jeff Jacobson, 97 points total behind Ian Haycox, and Edward Doherty, the last car on this top 5 chart, 107 points already behind your leader. But he's under threat of getting taken over by Aaron Fergele there, so he most definitely has to fight for his 5th place here today.
And if you've never watched before, well, welcome to the last round of the season. This isn't going to be the end of the series, though, thankfully. As you can see, we are in the last round with 3 drop weeks on hand. And they do have open setups in these cars, but they've limited the fuel, so you can expect at least 1 pit stop in the 40-minute race. As we look a little bit below there, you can see they've rationed the points, which is a bit unique to this series. So that means first place will always get 100 points, and last place will always get 25 points. They also have penalty points for each 10 incidents they get, so they need to stay clean. Sometimes it can be a little bit tough around here. And they have a spare car if they need it, of course, and have some sort of damage, which what we've seen from practice, there's probably going to be a few drivers, unfortunately, experiencing that. As always, we're watching this on the iRacing Esports Network. Make sure and subscribe when you get the opportunity. All you got to do is go to their YouTube page, click on the big red button that says subscribe, and you won't miss a moment here on IESN. Right now, we are in the midst of qualifying, and a bit of a surprise up at the top right now, but I believe it's due to draft. Hugh Haycox is our provisional pole sitter ahead of Gaspers, but a return of a name that we saw before earlier this season. Steph, Max Grau has come back.
Yeah, well, I would say Max Grau the much bigger surprise here than Hugh Haycox, because Hugh has already shown that he most certainly has the skills on a draft track like Watkins Glen is to be up there with David Gaspers and fight for a podium position. But we haven't seen from Max Grau what he can do thus far in the simulator. We know he's a real driver of this car, but simulation always a bit different to drive than the real thing.
Certainly seems to have it down here as he sits in third. Our top driver in the Spec 2. Well, it's Max Grau right now, but I'm not sure if they actually count him as Spec 2. Ian Haycox would be the next one down, sitting ninth overall as he messes up this lap, clearly. Everybody else continuing on by him. Sadro, who was challenging Gaspers for much of this season, is fourth, so he's going to start directly behind David unless things change. And then you've got driver you were watching seems to have something of a rivalry going on between Garrido Sanchez and Gaspers.
Yeah, most definitely. And Gaspers, we shall see if they meet on track right now. 5th place for Sanchez. Perry, who we're on board with, is sitting in 13th place. And Jason Perry, I watched the last race they did, which just ended about 15 minutes ago. Jason Perry actually finished 2nd place in that, just behind David Gasper. So Jason Perry most definitely knows what he has to do here to be very successful.
Your question about whether or not Gaspers and Sanchez will see each other on track. Well, Garrido Sanchez just went to the pole, so he's going to be directly in front of David Gaspers when they grid up today. I think it's highly likely that they'll be close to each other early on in the race. You can see him weaving his way through the bus stop as it's a lot of traffic in there, but I think the drivers kind of want this traffic here in qualifying as the draft seems to play a big part in their qualifying times.
Well, no, not this much traffic, that's for sure. That was a major slowdown there for Garrido Sanchez to not run into the back of Bob Kern, that was, who is sitting in 14th right now. He has some good amount of traffic right now that could help him to secure his first place at the next lap if Garrido Sanchez is able to, never mind, both of them ahead of him are deciding that that is going to be their effort for right now.
Well, one thing that we haven't looked at yet is the weather, and you noted this in the pre-race, how much it had gone up during practice, but now that we're in qualifying, it has jumped even more. It's now 106 degrees Fahrenheit and continuing to climb because we're pretty close to the middle of the day. It's only 1:30 in the afternoon, virtual standard time. So I have a feeling it's only going to continue to rise with the way things are.
Oh yeah, the temperature's only going to rise until 3 p.m. Then it's gonna start to die down again. But right now, as you saw on the graphic, 105 degrees Fahrenheit on the track, 41 degrees Celsius, that is, for your metric systems out there. So most definitely very hot, and that is gonna challenge these guys a little bit. The sky's mostly cloudy, but right now, as you can see, all the track in bright sunshine.
Ooh, looks like Michael Dobek has taken the pole in Spec 2. That puts him up in 7th. C. Love is now behind him in 9th place there as well. So C. Love getting into the mix of things. I haven't seen him win a Spec 2 race in a long time. And I'm not sure if we've ever seen him win a Spec 2 race. Now I'll have to check my stats on that. He comes around onto the front stretch. Let's see if he can improve on that 26.4 without any draft help. Nope, that one not going to count at all. Must have had an off somewhere along the way.
Which is very easy to get here through the inner loop and out of turn 1. Especially if you're trying to do the NASCAR line, you're most definitely going to run into wide patch of grass.
Wobolt is well coming around. Let's see if the number 215 can improve. He sits 29th. Out of 31 cars, he does improve to a 27.6, but it only bumps him up to 28th position. So now we watch David Gaspers. We're seeing a lot of traffic, some of which not making it to the line with him. Another lap that doesn't count for Gaspers is it looks like Max Grau going to try and use him to see if he can get a little bit better lap time. So does David abandon this lap? Yes, he does. He immediately pulls out of the way. He's not playing that game. And interesting to note, too, both Grau, Gaspers, Haycox, and Garrido Sanchez are all within 1/10 up on the top 2 rows. That is how tight it is and how little difference there is with so few braking zones around here, Steph.
Yeah, especially, and also the midfield right now, from 7th on down to now only 9th place is also within a 10th. That is 7, 8, 9. But then once again from 10th down, we have the next, 4, 5 cars, 6 cars, nearly even within a 10th. So yeah, it is the draft track. You're gonna find yourself in a draft pack no matter what you do. The draft goes down all the way to 2 seconds. So it is gonna be like that. It is gonna be one big cluster truck of cars. And how will that truck handle? Well, there's only one way to find out, and that is to wait for the green flag to drop.
So the truck does not veer off the road as we watch Jacobsen get another lap across the line, but another lap that did not count. Seeing a fair few drivers with off tracks as they work on their qualifying. This is Fitterer, who sits in 13th. He's in the midst of a trio. But not an improvement for him. He's followed by Patterson, and then in front we saw Miroslav Juracek, who hasn't been back in a while, if I recall. Goes way off track, though, so this definitely won't count for him. See, Sanchez is not out there, so he's done with qualifying. Hugh Haycox also not out there, and Gasper's just spun on the front stretch, so he's done with qualifying.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much Gaspers was still invested in trying to go for that first place in the grid, because going up, it is not gonna matter too much where you are position wise on the track until you cross the finish line, where it matters the most.
Christopher Patterson, unfortunately, not having the end he wanted to, has run through the bus stop. Inner loop, as Steph said, one of the trickier portions. Elson looks to be done with his qualifying. Checkered flag now out, so as they cross the line, let's see, is Fitterer going to be our first here?
He should be if he doesn't pit in, which he does, so he's not going to be the first one to cross the line. Next one up would be Eric Fugoli, who is sitting in 19th place right now. Right behind him, that's Ian Haycox.
Aaron sounded a little bit nervous despite being very familiar with this track in the practice, talking about how many mistakes he's made this season so far, and fears making more with the tight confines of the racing. He does improve on his final lap, good enough for 13th.
Paul Babuza right behind him, sits in 29th, doesn't improve, so he stays in 29th. That was a red car going over the line. That was Paulo Brim sitting in 30th, stays there.
Gehan going to cross next. He's in 27th. This latest lap, not an improvement, sadly, so he'll stay put.
Stevie Ray only in 20th place, just crossed the finish line, didn't improve on his lap. Gary McAreevy, he wrecked out of the last lap, so he's not going to be able to improve, and that was the last car trying to make it over the start-finish line.
Yep, Max Grau was the last one, and he also did not improve, so he'll have to settle for 4th. That finishes up our grid, though, but as you said, everybody has crossed the line at this point, so nobody else can set a new time. So let's go through your starting order with David Garrido Sanchez starting on the pole. Hugh Haycox, a bit of a surprise there. Not used to seeing him that high up, but he got a good one in. Let's see if he can back it up with race pace. He'll be 2nd place inside of the 2nd row, as David Gaspers with Max Grau next to him in 4th, a real-life driver coming in once again to show what he can do. Daniel Sadro, P5 today, with Jason Perry starting 6th at the drop of the green. Michael Dobek will be 7th, and Miroslav Juracek will be 8th. Then row 5, C Love starting in P9. Top 10 rounded out by Christopher Patterson.
In row 6, Gary McReevy and Ian Haycox will be lining up alongside each other. Aaron Fugale, 13th place, Donald Fitzgerald 14th, Stephen Elson taking 15th place on the grid, while Nico Schuch will line up in 16th. Michael Shaw, 17th, goes to him. Bob Kern, 18th. Jeff Jacobson, the 240 machine, in 19th. And as mentioned beforehand, Stevie Ray, the number 4, the league organizer, only down in 20th.
And then from there, it's a pretty large field today. Zachary LeVay in 21st, Edward Doherty in 22nd. Tom Broadwell starts behind them in 23rd, Ramon Regalado 24th. Brian D. Short will be P25, Adam Bradshaw 26th. The next row has Mark Gehan to the inside in 27th, Gary Wobold in 28th, and Paul Barbuza in 29th. Paolo Breme 30th, Giulio Fercolan 31st. Every single car managed to get a lap time in qualifying this time for a 31 car field, and I do see everybody in the session, so we should have everybody grid up as we wait for the Mustang pace car to peel off. Don't think we mentioned it yet since he was brought up a little bit ago. Stevie Ray apparently running a special paint scheme and dedication today, so I was wondering if we could get some cameras on him. Believe it was the car that his uncle prepped for his father, if I'm remembering correctly here. The real life car, I should say, that he prepped and raced in the SCCA. Yes, different number and different paint scheme today. It says, actually, his dad built it. Excuse me, I had that backwards. His dad built the car and his uncle drove it. So obviously this means a lot for Stevie Ray, and we wish him the best in what his family is dealing with right now. So as they work their way around on the pace lap, we'll get a feel for just how long these straights are, trundling along at pace speed here, Steph.
Yeah, and they are majorly long, making up about, if I remember correctly, 2/3 of what this track is about. The full throttle part is 2/3 long. So, yeah, really is going to be down all to the draft. How can you manage it? How can you not only manage the draft, but also the other drivers? And minimizing your mistakes, not losing that draft, is going to be the catchphrase of today.
Then, of course, there's the inner loop. Now, usually we don't advise going in too wide. These are pretty small cars, but you said that it's still an incredibly narrow racing line through there. I mean, do you think we'll see much too wide into there? Or should drivers be that brave, or is it smarter to just give it up and try to go single file?
Oh no, we will most definitely see too wide. If people are brave enough, some would say stupid enough, we might even see 3 wide through the inner loop, and I wouldn't advise it. I would be scared if I would be one of these drivers to go 3 wide into that, but no, we most definitely might see that happening here today.
All right, penultimate corner, then one more to go, and Sanchez is going to have control of the field. What is it going to look like down into the 90? What will it look like into the inner loop as well? A lot of very fast names up at the front. How aggressive are they willing to be at the start of this race? Mustang pace car is now in the pit lane. Sanchez immediately accelerates away. Hugh Haycox doesn't have an answer. He slots into second, but it's a battle for third behind them. Max Grau to the outside of David Gaspers with a slight nose ahead. Gaspers has the desired line. They come into the 90. It's a little bit of 3 wide behind them, multiple rows deep. They've got a lot of runoff to try and sort it out, and I think they've managed it.
Yeah, into turn 1 in the braking zone, Max Grau gave, sorry, not Max Grau, but Miroslav Juricek gave Jason Berry a little bit of a tap on the rear, so Jason Berry already with slight damage to his rear wing.
Wow, look at them still spread out coming up through the S's. Gasper's got a huge run coming up but he's going to lift as they now come up to the inner loop. In fact, the top 10 pretty much all single file as everybody tries to sort this out, but big problems in the back as we got a car spinning out and a couple taking to the escape road. Looks like Michael Shaw was one of those. We'll get back to it in a little bit, and Nico Schuk, the one that got turned around.
Too wide, a few rows deep through the inner loop, and now we have a too wide between Hugh Haycox and David Gaspers for that second place. David Gaspers around the outside of the penultimate corner, makes it happen, and now has the inside, doesn't even need the inside after the last turn. He takes back second place.
Wow, around the outside of the second to last corner is pretty daring stuff, but it looks like it might be for naught, because here comes Hugh Haycox right back at him, down into the 90. They got to be careful. If they lose touch with Sanchez by slowing each other up in this corner, that could be bad news. Gaspers manages to carry his speed well, but so does Grau, who's going to go on by Hugh Haycox for third, potentially. Nope, they're going to go side by side up the S's.
Yeah, but the inside goes to Max Grau, so that is settled right there. And then Jason Perry now the next one to try to overtake Hugh Haycox. Hugh Haycox already falling back, 4th place now. Might be 5th place by the end of this straight, as also David Gaspers tries to overtake David Garrido Sanchez into the inner loop, thus so effectively. And yeah, Max Grau nearly running to the back of Garrido Sanchez there.
Certainly had to back out of it. This top train goes all the way back to Christopher Patterson in 9th. It's only until then that you get more than a second gap to the next car, which would be Jerry McAreevy, who actually got a qualifying in this time. Sometimes we see him coming a little too late for that. Still a lot of drivers in contention, but we expect, Steph, that we'll see that train dwindle as time goes by.
Oh yeah, right now a lot of people are still part of... Grau!
There goes Grau. Everybody takes to the right side to avoid him, but a big wreck unfortunately causes him to be trapped here, and he can't get out, letting the whole field get through. Now he's got a gap. Let's look at the replay. Did it just go wide? What happened here?
He hit the inside curb, leading him to a slight spin, going wide, and then on the grass completely lost it. You can see how he's starting to pedal the wheel, and then goes hard into the safety barrier.
Let's watch the replay as well for the first lap. I believe this is going into the inner loop. Yes, it is.
Yep, most definitely. What do we have here? Who is that we're focusing on? That is Nico Schuk there. Oh, 3 wide into the bus stop or inner loop.
Oh, we got some help
already, and yeah.
And that was Michael Shaw that got into him. He then pulled over, let him back in front of him, although he gave up a lot of other positions in the process. So I guess it's fair for each of them. In that case, although neither would like to be in the position they're in for the moment. Still running well far back in the field.
Just a very awkward situation. They're entering the inner loop there, and yeah, that's just what happens sometimes in the first lap, especially with 31 cars on the track. But right now we have a very interesting development with Miroslav Juricek having lost the back end of the top 2. David Gaspers and David Garrido Sanchez now 2.3 seconds ahead of 3rd place.
And Spider-Man's trying to slide up the inside. That's Jason Perry. He's probably going to go a little bit wide as the car starts to slide. Juracek has to take to the grass just to get around him and not lift. But he manages to get that 3rd place back. That also gives a lot of speed to Hugh Haycox, who gets up behind the number 97. Looks to try and hurry him along, see if they could pull away from the train behind them, which has been caught, by the way. Jerry McAreevy is joining the fray. Ian Haycox in there, and Aaron Vagley.
Yeah, just look at the amount of cars that are behind this battle for 3rd place.
Oof, side by side into the inner loop. That was Juracek barely managing to stay out of Jason Perry, who gets the spot back. Sorry there, Steph.
Yeah, this train basically goes back all the way to 11th place from 3rd place, and even Steve Elson in 12th place, only 1.5 seconds behind. Now Ian Haycox being the end of the train. So yeah, pretty much a lot of cars, pretty much your back half of the top 10 still in that train for 3rd place.
I like that. Even Steven. We'll have to start calling him that one. So, almost up to the wall for Jason Perry, clearly pushing to try and break away from Juracek. Unfortunately, that gave him a bad exit instead. Miroslav looking to the inside. Going to try and look for the position behind them. That is Hugh Haycox ducking back and forth. I think he's looking for a good launch himself. He gets a decent one. Juracek stays ahead. Perry back into fourth.
Yeah, and even Steven is coming up to the back now of this train, closing up the gap. So effectively this train is now a 10-car train with the first 2 cars fighting yet again. Juracek very slow though. Dobek trying to do it 3 wide now. Sadra backing out of that, and yeah, Jason Perry is staying ahead, still in 3rd place.
A little bump drafting going on, little weaving. This is getting a little sketchy. We'll come back to that in a bit. Just a heads up, Gaspers and Sanchez 5 seconds up the road and still very close to one another. This is feeling a little bit like what you sometimes see. We call it draft racing. This is looking like Dega or Daytona here, Steph, where you just start to get the sense the way the drivers are behaving. Bad news is around the corner.
I don't know, I would much rather describe it with Moto3 racing. If people are watching MotoGP, then most definitely you know what I'm talking about, with just a lot of underpowered motorcycles being very close to each other, utilizing the draft to stay close to each other, and that's basically what is happening here. And yeah, it just, the Hornet's Nest is buzzing, and it's buzzing very heavily.
Good run out of the 90 for Miroslav Juracek. He gets back by Hugh Haycox. You can see following them, that is Dobek. We ride on board the Mac Reviews at the tail just behind Daniel Sadro. Everybody trying to find someone to hook up with. Looks like Hugh Haycox going to try and work with Juracek. That will get both of them by Jason Perry. But Perry, having a little company from Dobek, gets back in line in time. This is a monstrous train at this point, going all the way back to Bob Kern in 15th from 3rd. Down to the penultimate corner once more. Haycox actually pulling away a little bit from Jason Perry. This could be his opportunity. 0.8 of a second between them. He's going to have to start working together with Juracek.
Now, one thing I have to... Oh, Juracek! Woohoo! What a save. But one thing I have to say is that... Oh, Seeloff just spun out of the last turn, flicks it around. Don't even think he hit the wall there. No, he didn't. Just a great flick. And he's driving again. As we take you to the replay of that.
You know, I'm not sure that he did hit the wall. Let's watch him on board. It was close to the nose. Didn't hit the tail. Wow, I think he just barely got away with it.
That has split up this train ever so slightly, but I would honestly say, with the 2-second remark there of the draft, this train goes all the way back to at least Jeff Jacobson in 17th.
You could see on the long shot that we had just how ridiculous it looks at this point. Oh, but someone overshot themselves.
No,
that's Nico Schuk.
Yeah,
he's just a lap down. He's trying to let everybody through. That move from Sea Love is my save of the race so far. That is really heads up on his part to keep it out of the wall. Let's continue to watch this battle, though. Weaving their way down towards the penultimate corner. They did manage to catch back up to Juracek and Haycox. Little side-by-side action between Vaguely and Sadro. Boy, Sadro is mired down in the pack. Usually we see him fighting up towards the lead for a podium here, and he's only down in 9th.
That's draft racing for you, but he still is in contention of a podium, because remember, this train goes all the way up to 3rd place.
Down into the 90 one more time. We're only 10 minutes into this race. For all of our doomsaying, they've been handling all this craziness pretty well up at the front. Hugh Haycock's going to retake that front position. Oh, and this is where it gets sketchy, is people making moves like that. That was Dobek who had to take to two wheels in the grass to save it. Inner loop, too deep, too wide. The Noah's Ark into the corner, and a big bobble from Juracek saves the car, checks everybody up behind him. Woo, disaster averted.
I don't even know what to say about this train at this point. This is a hornet's nest, and it's just waiting for the last steer of someone to set it off and make a chain reaction happen where this pack just explodes in one battle after another. This just right now, it sounds strange, but this is pretty calm for how close these drivers are.
Like I said, I'm impressed because even though it has been kind of frantic, everybody's managed to keep their wits about them. And if it's a hornet's nest, though, the question is, which car is going to wind up being the rock thrown at it and cause everything to explode?
Oh, we just had a rock thrown, and that was the car of Secretary LeVay.
He was towards in fact, he was the very tail of that train, so thankfully it didn't really get too much out of that. Just had evasive action from Jeff Jacobson to have a great heads up and weave around the outside of
Bradshaw.
Who was that? Is that Bradshaw?
Yes, that was Bradshaw. He had a separate incident, but at the same corner. Now, I'm saying, someone else just spun in the inner loop. Yeah.
And it was a single car incident. No, it wasn't. He had some help. Jason Perry, but I don't think Perry really is at fault here.
No, that's just the inside curb here at the inner loop. Very bumpy. It has a high edge in the middle, and then it is very flat on the inside, and that's what your check got caught out there about.
Well, so far we've had two rocks whiz by the hornet's nest without hitting it. So there's only so many times we can get lucky before someone gets hurt, I'm afraid. We've got some pit stops happening. Elson is in. Bob Kern is in. We've also had Stevie Ray, no surprise there, complete his pit. Oh, and Gaspers has fallen off of Sanchez. Did he have a slowdown? He's about 2 seconds back. Looks like this happened in the penultimate corner this last time by.
Yeah, he hit the inside curb, got loose, and just slammed the brake to not lose his car. But I'm pretty sure Gaspers most definitely will catch up again with Captain Sanchez because he's still in the draft range. There we can see his little hiccup. There's the touch and there's the brake.
Oh, and he couldn't get into gear. As that was happening during the replay, Jason Perry's left the front group. He spun on his own in the inner loop.
And
no, you know what? He had some netcode. McAreevy just tipping the back of him.
That was a bump draft gone wrong. It seems like, just too close on the bump draft to the turn, and Jason Perry spins around. While also that was going on, Stevie Ray sadly lost it through the penultimate corner to the outside wall. Heavy impact for him. His race pretty much done for any chance of a high finishing place.
Perry's coming in, probably going to take his spare car. Donald Fitter, you see, also entering Jeff Jacobson. We're getting close to halfway, so no surprise that we are starting to see a few drivers elect to take their scheduled stops, especially if they've got a little bit of damage on the car. As we come back to this battle for what is effectively second, although Hugh Haycox has pulled the gap on Jerry McAreevy. You can see the action is between Dobek Doherty and Vaguely. They're going to go side by side into the inner loop, but Dobek backs out of it, allows Doherty into fifth. This is starting to look more and more like a breakaway. McAreevy getting some space now.
This makes me kind of sad right now that this series has pit stops, because without pit stops, I think the craziness in this pack would have gone on. But pretty sure the people who started pitting first, except for Stevie Ray, obviously, just said themselves, "This is ludicrous. I'm pitting. Oh, thank you very much for your entertainment, but this is a little bit too frantic for my likings right now."
Very close down the front stretch, down into the 90, trailing right behind. Dobek working on vaguely as we ride on board with Ian Haycox, the elder of the two. He's going to get a nice run as well. Slide around the outside, and that's a position gained.
Now, your leader of the cars that have already pitted is sitting in 18th place. That is the number 56 of Steven Elson. His pit stop was an 11.1 second with a 35.2 second pit lane transition time. He is 40.5 seconds behind the leader, but most importantly, behind Gary McReevy, he's only sitting about 30 seconds. So Steven Elson are right now very close to making it happen so that he actually comes out in front of Gary McReevy.
Meanwhile, up front, your eyes do not deceive you. David Gaspers did exactly what Steph said and has run down Garrido Sanchez for the lead. He is within the draft at this point, and the battle is back on. Gaspers setting another fastest lap last time around. I think we got another taker, Patterson, in. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, just shows how effective the draft here is. Last lap was about a tenth faster than the one of Sanchez. Now Gaspers is also overtaking Garrido Sanchez. No surprise there. Way much more speed down the straight. Makes it happen even before the 500 feet board to turn into the bus stop. And he is past and probably will try to maybe put some pressure onto Sanchez and try to run away ever so slightly.
You're talking about Elson. Whoa, and Hugh Haycox with a big slide. He catches it yet again, but this has brought everyone right back on top of him. McAreevy, Doherty, Vaguely, Dobek, Haycox, Sadro, eager to get by.
That inside curb once again. But Doherty and Gary McReevy trying to work together to get past Hugh Haycox around the outside. Maybe McReevy makes it happen. We have seen that before with Hugh Haycox. It was David Gaspers, and this time, once again, he has to concede the position as Gary McReevy also pits in when Hugh Haycox wanted to do the up and under there on Gary McReevy.
It says bad written all over it, and thankfully Ian Haycox sees what's going on. He backs out of it before he sends it 3 wide into the 90. Doherty taking it wide to carry his speed next to Hugh Haycox. And it's going to be a drag race up the hill as they punch a huge hole in the air for Aaron Vaguely. He could also find himself with a 2-for-1 situation.
Watch for Dobek. He might be able to do something here. No, Aaron Vaguely trying to do it 3 wide. Oh, Hugh Haycox nearly touching Edward Doherty there. And Aaron Vaguely looking like he's going to be able to make it happen into the inner loop. No, that's no. And Hugh Haycox once again, big slide in the grass. And also
both Haycoxes. Oh no, father and son through the inner loop have the same problem at the same time.
Whoa!
Oh, wow.
I'm Gradwell.
Ian putting his car in a very awkward position on his return. And completely different reasons that they went off. I mean, Ian may have been upset by his son in front of him having issues.
Yeah,
but he hit the curb.
No. Ian Haycox just had such a weird line into the inner loop that he hit the middle part of the second curb, and that spun him around. So yeah, no, those incidents were separated.
Sadro now pits. Hugh Haycox follows him in. Ian continues on. Now, where McAreevy, by the way, came out ahead of Steve Elson by a decent gap. McAreevy is our highest pitter. Let's see if this changes.
It will not. By quite some distance, look at that.
Jerry just behind Paul Barbuza, who
Oh!
himself has a big accident coming out of the 90. That was a massive hit into the Armco. Rear is starting to come around, and he's trying to save it. Oh, the grass.
Jeff Jacobson, meanwhile, also had an incident in turn 1 the other way. He spun to the left, right into the safety barrier. Huge damage to the front of his car, as we see once again, too wide, going down the backstretch.
You see Jason Perry now down in 16th after his pit stops being chased by Michael Shaw.
Edward Doherty, Aaron Fergley, and Michael Dobeck now into pit lane. So this is now going to see where they come out compared to Gary McAreevy, who I would say right now will take over third place again.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure that's the case because Sadro was with that group and he is way behind McAreevy. So let's see, Dobeck still stationary, Vaguely still stationary. Doherty going now, but already McAreevy is coming through the 90. He is long gone.
Very long stop for Dobeck.
Oh, and Vaguely, he was asking him where he would make his mistake. Did he catch the wall with that bobble?
I don't
Not seeing damage from our cameras.
Dobeck behind actually nearly made the same mistake, but he did hit the inside curb there, nearly spinning him around. So he had two cars nearly with the same incident there in the same corner.
Well, that cost Aaron a little bit of time. Unfortunately, that sends him down to 12th. Oh, he might quickly catch up with the group because they're all racing side by side into the inner loop. That's Doherty, Patterson, and Fitter. Got Bob Kern ahead of them. Oh, and Gasper's pit, but he pit alone. Sanchez didn't follow him. Now, this is an interesting development.
Sanchez thinks he can do something with the overcut, but I think in this race here, the undercut is actually stronger than the overcut, like we saw with Gary McAreevy. So yeah, David Gasper's now coming out a little bit behind Stevie Ray, so he might be able to get a little bit off draft during the next 2 or 3 laps, but obviously depends on how much fuel did Sanchez save. Is it just 1 lap or is it more?
Well, he, Bream, and for Colin are the only 3 that are waiting to take a stop, but the number 27 is definitely going to be due for a stop now. Oh. That was Sadro and Elson that were going by already too wide. Thankfully, he saw them at the last second. Sanchez does not come in this time.
So yeah, 29 seconds, 29 and a half seconds right now, the difference between Sanchez and Gaspers.
Did Bob Kern just go off? No, it's Hugh Haycox. Hugh Haycox into the barriers in the 90. This was all on his own. He was chasing Mark Gehan. He counter-steered at the exact wrong time. You're going to see this pink and purple machine just spear off into the barrier.
Easy mistake to make with a very harsh outcome for Hugh Haycox's car there.
So Paulo Bream is coming in. No surprises there. Needs to get his spare car out. For Colin is still outgoing and about to be lapped. Sanchez following him very closely. There's Julio. So does he come in this time by. Be surprised with how thirsty of a track this usually is if he continues on.
Yeah, he's going in now.
So is Sanchez. All right, so did that help Sanchez being out away from Gaspers? I'm not confident with the way that we saw the 23 run him down without any help. I think this plan might backfire.
The gap roughly did stay the same, but I'm not sure if that is going to be enough for Garrido Sanchez to actually stay with Gaspers, because Gaspers will have so much more straight line speed already coming up to the straight. But let's see what happens. Sanchez now off the pit limiter, and here comes Gaspers.
This is a long stop for Sanchez. Oh, wow. 5 seconds longer, and I'm not exactly sure why.
Well, I was looking at the wrong car because that was Julia Forsolin. So, yeah, wrong black car, but Sanchez most definitely 5 seconds longer. That pretty much has decided the race for first place, unless David Gaspers sets a tire wrong.
I wouldn't put anything out for now. Michael Shaw's come in for a second stop, and I see some damage on the back of his car. Trying to see if I can figure out what happened to him. Looks like he just had a bad bump draft on the back stretch. Hit the Armco. Don't need to go back for a replay. That was with Jason Perry. So he had to come in and get some repairs out of that. Let's head back to the battle for 7th. Oh, boy. That was vaguely. I was just going over that as you saw the same thing I did, Steph, that it looked like the action was hot here, and it was a little too hot, unfortunately, for Aaron.
Yeah, Bob Kern a little bit slower than Aaron Fugely, and Fugely had to cut over the inside of the first curve with a weird angle, sending him into a little bit of a wiggle, sending him into Bob Kern, sending him all the way around.
Watching Patterson's view. Woo! That was awful close to his nose. Could have gone a lot worse. You know, I was thinking about it, and we haven't really covered much of the Spec 2 race yet. And then when I looked at our Spec 2 leader, Doherty has gone from 22nd up to 6th. Now that could change very rapidly, like it looks like it will here, as that was Fitterer going around the outside. Fitterer not in the Spec 2 lead. But Doherty, what a climb for the 294.
Welcome to draft racing. No, that's really just what draft racing does to you. Like, we saw that the battle for third place was at one point, including the 2-second draft, a battle all the way down to about 23rd. So, yeah, Doherty, good start to his race, and he really did manage to drive very well through the field up to 6th place right now.
Right on board with Doherty, hooking up with the 211 once again. Well, he thought about going by. We've still got, amazingly, 22 cars on the lead lap. This is not that long of a lap. I thought that maybe we'd have a lot of cars a lap down, but of our 31 starters, we actually still have 25 of them as well. So chaos hasn't been too costly yet. Watching Elson and Sadro down through the 90. This is the battle for P4. The podium pretty well separated. Gaspers, Sanchez, and McAreevy. If anything, this almost looks like Sadro and Elson working together a little bit. What if they're going to try and catch up to McAreevy? 10 minutes left to go in this race now. Everybody has pitted. Let's run down your order and give you an update on where things sit. David Gaspers is your leader, and by a pretty decent margin. He used pit strategy to pull away when he couldn't, based on pace, just because of the draft. And that is ahead of our second place driver, David Sanchez, who has been challenging him this race. And despite David expressing a few concerns, they've raced pretty well together, although they are not close now. Third place, Jerry McAreevy, who started in 11th, survived all the cars battling around him in a huge train, at sometimes gathering 15 cars into it, and comes out smelling like roses with a possible podium. Then we get back to fourth place, Steve Elson. He's been swapping back and forth as he himself started this thing in 15th as well. Had to work his way forward, and the driver that he's swapping with is Daniel Sadro, the number 51, usually fighting for a podium, but once again, his race pace is more than my naysaying seems to have implied, as he's in the top 5 here, Steph, and looking pretty good now.
Yeah, most definitely. Sixth place right now goes to Edward Doherty, or first place in the Spec 2 Championship, but that can change quite fast. Donald Fitterer with him alongside Bob. Current 7th and 8th are going to them. And yeah, one thing we have already mentioned a few times, we can't mention it enough. Edward Doherty went from 22nd up to 6th place. Right behind them, that is the number 70 of Christopher Patterson. A very quiet race from him. Started in 10th, right now sitting in 9th place. Jason Perry, the last car in your top 10 right now, the 97. Auto clutch driver, I have been told. Started in 6th place, right now in 10th place.
There's your top 10 after just about 35 minutes of racing. So we now ride on board, looking ahead at Jason Perry from Michael Dobeck, just staying right behind that Spider-Man car. This is looking a lot more orderly than what we saw at the start of the race, which seems a bit reversed of what you'd expect. You'd think that things would get crazier towards the end, but it seems like everybody's just kind of thinking, all right, let's get to the end. There's no reason to fight hard with whoever I'm with, as we see Max Grau come in for a second stop.
Yeah, no, it's just what the pit stops do to you. It is gonna split up the field, it is gonna split up the strategy, and like we see right now with that 3-car train for 6th place, it is pretty much all that remains of that big battle group we had at the start of the race.
Oh, Dobeck had an issue. This one once again in the inner loop. Remember, he was with, nobody actually. He was chasing Patterson. Those nasty curbs. You keep mentioning them. And he's another victim.
Yep. Once again, the end of the inside curb did catch him out. If you don't have enough right height in your car, that's exactly what happens. Just the rear hops up onto it and you are done with spin. Oh.
Whoa. Well, Jason Perry, was that help that he got that sent him in the wall there?
Yeah, that was Dobeck. So 2 incidents involving Dobeck there. And Dobeck just misjudged the speed there between himself and Jason Perry.
Well, unfortunately for Jason, I think that's going to be day over, as he's already taken his spare car. Had to take a tow, and now sits all lonesome on that downhill run at the exit of the pits. A little bit lonesome as well for the number 23, but I think he's used to that at this point. The way he's been racing this season. He's won, let's see, was it 9 races thus far?
Yeah.
He's won 8 races. This is going to be the 9th, which would mean a perfect score if he does this.
Which I would say at this point is extremely likely to do. 8.2 seconds is the gap now between himself and David Garrido Sanchez. He is opening the gap every single lap by at least 2/10. The last lap at 26.243 versus a 26.504 for Gaspers and Sanchez respectively. So once again, 2.5 tenth gained there by Gaspers.
Here's another stat to give you some idea of just how dominant Gaspers has been this season. He's led 175 laps. The next highest driver to have led laps, 34, and that is Kane Halliburton. That's the kind of whomping that he has put on the field. So we watch Edward Doherty down here in this fun little scrap with Bob Kern, who he's going to go around the outside of. Donald Fitterer behind them. This is all for sixth position. Kern just going to slot into line.
You know, the weirdest thing to me is that David Gaspers hasn't won a single time the Hard Charger Award.
It's because he keeps qualifying up front. He'd start from the back in Suzuka, but where did he finish? He won that one, did he?
He won that one,
How did he not get the Hard Charger? Maybe you have to qualify on that one. Maybe it's Bill rules.
You might have to look after that.
Doherty looking over his shoulder back at Bob Kern onto the front stretch. Had a little bit of a rough exit off of the final turn. That allows Kern to close back in down the front stretch. But he runs out of straightaway. Blows it up. Oh, almost gets into the back of him in the process, though. No harm, no foul.
Now, interestingly, they provide quite the extensive data to us, and in Suzuka, the Hard Charger was Bob Kern.
I suspect then it's a case of you have to put a lap in qualifying that counts to get a Hard Charger award. As Doherty's going to go for it again, but are they going to go too wide? Nope, Doherty's going to back out of it.
However, also the interesting stat is that in Suzuka, nobody got the Safe Driver Award, which does give you 5 points. So nobody was actually able to keep under, I think it's 2 incident points.
Wonder how many they're going to be racking up today as we're down to 2 laps to go.
Jacobsen doesn't hit the wall in turn 1. He struggled with that car for a good 300 feet there through turn 1. What a save by him.
Right on board. Watch the hands here. Counter steering, catch it. Woo! I mean, he didn't keep a lot of speed up, but if the car is whole, I mean, any landing you can walk away from, I suppose?
Yeah, pretty much, as David Gaspers just lapped him. As we go back to the fight for that is 17th place there between Brian Short, Paul Barbusa, and Mark Gehan.
Poor midfield really hasn't got a whole lot of attention. I guess more at the back of the field, as we followed all the way down to sometimes 15th place, 17th place. These three having their own little scrap, trying to settle things out. There is pride involved with these drivers, so they do have reason to try and fight for these spots. But just now, we're getting the white flag coming out for David Gaspers as he exits the final corner, a whole 10 seconds ahead of Garrido Sanchez. Still 19 cars left on our lead lap. In fact, that battle that we were looking at is the last cars on the lead lap. Now, what's going to happen, though, with these two? Sadra and Elson have not been able to catch up to McAreevy. I suspect it is gloves off. As they come up the hill. Oh, and poor Christopher Patterson seems to have run out of fuel because he is coming to the pits for a second time.
Fitterer just spun in turn 1 for the battle for 6th place.
We'll get back to those in a second. Elson gonna go by Sadro. He takes the position easily. Sadro's gonna get the slipstream right back. He challenges him down into the inner loop, but thinks twice about it. We'll get maybe one more try coming down into the penultimate corner, but even then, I'm not sure that he'll get much of an opportunity there. The driver there
Oh, and
now,
Mike
the number
Rigby's out of fuel.
23. Oh, another driver coming up short. Certainly not the case for David Gaspers. To the line for a perfect score this season. 3 drop weeks, and only those 3 were the ones where he didn't win, such as here today at Watkins Glen.
Garrido Sanchez coming home in second place, but third place still up for grabs with McCreevy running out of fuel out of the carousel. Steve Nelson will take that one home. Fourth place to Daniel Sacker.
Oh, McAreevy going to be kicking himself on that one. Didn't have enough draft to get to the end. Vaguely going to get a nice 7th place despite his error. That's not a bad result. Oh, and what happened to Ian Aycox's motor? We'll check that out in a bit. By the way, Kern was our winner in the Spec 2.
Well, here is first the spin of Donald Fittra. It's just a little bit of a...
He was trying to avoid Doherty.
Yeah. And Doherty is also going to be the cause of what happened to Ian Haycox, and that one most definitely goes under the very awkward category because, yeah, that's not what you want to do.
No, I think Ian Haycox lost it.
No,
you're right. Yeah, I didn't see that before. He was hidden.
Mm-hmm.
That is a bad re-entry if I ever saw one.
That is the peekaboo re-entry there.
Yeah, he was not looking out at that point. Now, who was that? Did he?
I think that was Fitterer.
And he just basically lost it on his own, watching what was happening ahead of him. But that finishes out our race and finishes out the season. So we're going to take a quick break. We'll come back with a post-race show where we will get the unofficial results as well as driver interviews. If you watch on screen, you'll see all the upcoming races here on the GSRC. Welcome back to Watkins Glen International. We just watched the final round of the Weekend Warriors for Season 3 here in 2019. David Gaspers completes his perfect season. Now, not completely perfect points, as he did have some penalty points in there, but as far as the races itself goes, his 3 drop weeks means there was only 3 that he didn't win. Were the only 3 that did not count towards his score. Sanchez came home in second, but honestly, once he had separated, Gaspers was clearly the class of the field. Steve Elson, a bit of a surprise third, having started 15th. McAreevy facilitated that with his losing fuel at the end. Daniel Sadro got to be kicking himself, thinking if he could have just stayed ahead of Steve, he could have been on that podium. McAreevy finishes 5th in the end, sputtering across the line. Bob Kern, another climber, 18th to 6th for him. With Aaron Vagley, he certainly was a little bit pessimistic, but I'd say a 7th place is a fair result, with Donald Fitterer finishing 8th behind him. Michael Dobeck takes 9th, another driver who took a lot of spots on his way forward. Zachary LeVay going from 21st to a top 10.
Yeah, quite a drive there by Zachary LeVay, but the double first position goes to the 299 of Tom Gradwell, some 56 seconds behind your winner. Gary Walpole taking home 12th place. Ian Haycox, after a very interesting wreck there on the last lap, taking home 13th place. Max Grau, after a very unfortunate event early in the race, he came out once again in his new car and managed to finish in 14th. Paul Babusa 15th, Brian Short 16th, and the last car to finish on the lead lap was Mark Geehan. Edward Doherty 18th, first car 1 lap down, also involved in that interesting wreck with Ian Haycox. Christopher Patterson 19th, and 20th went to Jeff Jacobson.
21st, we saw the late action for Paolo Bream. And Nico Schuk, unfortunately, the very first lap really set the tone for him. He winds up 22nd. Julio Forcolan, 23rd. Then you get into the DNFs for the day. Jason Perry, 24th. Stevie Ray, 25th. And Michael Shaw, 26th. Hugh Haycox, Ramon Regalado, Adam Bradshaw Seelove, and Miroslav Juracek, the last of your fields. First up, we have our champion and our winner, David Gaspers, ready to talk to us. David, awesome race today. It seemed like you played a very patient game, because as soon as those pit stops happened, you were off like a shot.
Yeah, I'm trying to pit when I was behind David, so I would have at least 1 lap to try to break the draft.
Well, it certainly worked, but you had a little moment maybe of distress. Was you lost about 2 seconds to him coming through the penultimate corner. What happened there?
My shifter decided to drop me in neutral several times during the race.
Well, that makes that win all the more impressive. We were just saying as well that this win means with your drop weeks, you effectively have a perfect season. Granted, that doesn't take into account you had 6 penalty points in there, and of course all the bonus points. But regardless, this is quite a feat that you've managed. I mean, how do you feel knowing that?
Yeah, it was my goal, at least for the last couple of races. But I don't know if I feel anything special about it, to be honest. I just race to race, and I don't really care about the championships too much.
All right. Well, at least we know that it is truly in your blood in that case. Well, congratulations on another one here at Watkins Glen. Will we see you in the big grid?
I don't think so. I'm not a fan of refueling races, and I think I'm having ping issues. I'm not a fan of refueling races, and I don't like the track either.
All right. Well, at least you get a 2-week break. That was David Gaspers, our winner and champion here in season 3. Steph is going to be talking to the driver that was chasing him and was just off the podium, Daniel Sadro.
Yeah, chasing him, and second place finish in the championship for Daniel Sadro, if I got it correct. Either way, Daniel, still a very, very impressive season, I would say.
Yeah, thanks. It's been a lot of it has just been the big thing has been just keeping my nose clean whenever possible, making fewer mistakes, and just being consistent rather, because I know I'm not going to beat Gaspers on a week by week basis, so I just have to be reasonably consistent.
Lotus 79 needs the balance of Gernot. The Weekend Warriors needs the balance of Gaspers. But it is kind of like the title for the best of the rest. It feels like with Gaspers just that much out there. Either way, next season, new opportunities will be opening. How are you feeling about that one?
Well, I'm about as optimistic as I ever am. Every season I feel I'm getting just a little bit better, or a little bit closer to the front, and eventually the dam will break, and I'll have a win on merit instead of one when someone else crashes.
Nah, win is a win. You pressured Gaspers into that mistake. Don't pull yourself down like that.
Yeah.
But either way, next week we will have the big grid. Will you be attending that one at most sport? That will be.
Yeah, I do plan to be there. I like the track. I don't know if I'm great at it, but I enjoy it, and I'm looking forward to having fun as usual.
Well, we are looking forward to seeing you in that race. Daniel Sadra, thanks for talking to us, and once again, congrats on your second place in the championship.
Yeah, thanks, and of course, thanks to Steve Ray for putting this all on. Thanks for the Sim Stickers guys for sponsoring it, and having you guys put it on YouTube for us. So, thanks again, guys.
Well, thanks for being part of the championship. And Joe Peak, next up, talking to Ian Haycox.
Indeed, Ian Haycox, by our calculations, you are the Spec 2 champion. And you didn't win the Spec 2 race today, but I mean, is this still a good feeling for you, knowing that you'll get to graduate, as it were?
Yeah, up with the big boys, you mean?
Exactly.
Now, yeah, it was very satisfying, actually. Yeah, I just kind of kept my nose clean the whole season and just kept plugging away, really.
Certainly, and you did have to fight for it, as there was still the possibility you could lose it here at this round. Talk to us, though, a little bit about during the race. It seemed like both you and your son Hugh had a horrible moment at the inner loop at the same time.
Yes, I know. I heard Hugh on the radio say, "Oh no, don't go 3 wide," and so I backed right out of it, and I think Hugh did, and it kind of got us into trouble, really. So it didn't really work out. But I think I recovered from that, and with a good pit stop, I think I was running about 8th or 9th until a bit of bad luck on the last lap.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for sure. How much do you and Hugh talk to each other during the races, or even preparing for them? Is there much cooperation, or you just kind of let your son do his own thing?
We kind of do our own thing, but we do warn each other if there's a bit of craziness ahead or behind. It's just forewarning, really. But no, we don't ever work together to sort of manufacture anything, if that's what you're asking.
Well, more if you helped each other with setups or lines.
Oh, yeah, we do. Yeah. We basically run the same setups, I think, and practice together. So that's why our pace is very similar.
Makes sense then. Well, we love seeing you guys race against each other. Again, congratulations, and can't wait to see you race in Spec 1 next season.
Yeah, that'd be good fun, and great broadcast, guys, and it's been a great season. Thanks everyone who's been racing with us.
That was Ian Haycox, who finished 13th today, but our Spec 2 winner. Up next, real quick, we want to talk to the man that runs it all, Stevie Ray. Steve, thank you again for an awesome season out there. Obviously, this race didn't quite go how you wanted for yourself, but still, we saw some fantastic races this season.
Hi, guys. Yeah, it's been a good season, and I just wanted to pop in real quick and thank all the Warriors that come out every week and do this, and Paul at Sim Stickers for supporting us this season, and he plans on being on board next season as far as I know, and thank you guys. I think we got a really good thing going, and I think it shows, and I'm proud of the Weekend Warriors.
Now, you told us a little bit before the race about the special paint scheme that you prepared, and if it's okay to ask, could you elaborate a little bit more on this car that used to run in the SCCA, this car in the real world?
Yeah, my dad and my uncle had a MG Midget and then an Alfa Romeo for many years. My dad built and maintained the car, and my uncle drove it. and it was always a black and with white stripes, and even had some white fuzz around it. But like 20 years or so. So I just wanted to honor him. They always ran number 4. My uncle had the Big 4 foundry in Tulsa. And my dad's not doing too good. Not sure how much longer he's got. It's literally day by day. So I just wanted to put a paint job on and a throwback for that and honor my dad on this one.
Well, our thoughts definitely go out to you and your family during this time, and can't thank you enough for taking time out of your schedule to help run these things. We're looking forward to next week as well. We just mentioned it to the other drivers that we've got Mosport for the V runoffs coming up in a week.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun one. My goal was to get us on a track that we haven't run yet, and Mosport seemed like a really good track, nice and wide. It's got draft and some technical, so I think we'll put on a good show next.
We're looking forward to that as well. Again, looking forward to seeing you both next season and a week from now, and best of luck.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Thanks, Stefan and Amjad and all you guys at GSRC. You guys do a great.
Thank you very much. That was Stevie Ray, who came home in 25th today, but he's the man that obviously gets all the gears running. That's going to close us up, of course. And a bit of people that we want to thank is Sim Stickers, because they are the sponsor of this season. I believe, if I heard correctly, they are coming back to sponsor next season, from what I've been told. So once again, we cannot tip our hats enough to Sim Stickers for making sure this gets on air as well. Thank you to iRacing, of course, for bringing us on the iRacing eSports Network. Make sure and subscribe. They have a lot of awesome series, many that we cover, and many covered by our friends over at the other channels that are included on this network. Also, don't forget to thank the companies that provide the software and hardware that make these broadcasts possible. You can see them listed here on your screen. I know we say it every week, but they're a big part of what makes all this possible. Additional thanks to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get hold of more of her great work. And thanks to the team today, of course, Stefan, Amjad, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find out more at globalsimracingchannel.com. Or you can check out our social media. Our Twitter is at GSR Channel, Facebook, Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram, GSRC_Graham. As we mentioned, on September 8th, a week from now, next Sunday, they are having the V runoffs at Mosport. If you've never seen that, imagine 60 cars, 60 of these things, all taking to the track at the same time to see who's the best of the best. It's exciting stuff. We have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out too and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.